guys, Dr. Decks here. Today we are sealing up some areas on the house. So this is a video about caulking and how to use a caulk gun. If you already know how to use a caulk gun, thanks for watching. Maybe this video is not for you, but for those of you that don't know how to use a caulk gun, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks and make this really quick and show you guys how to use one. Thanks for watching. Please, if you would, click that subscribe button, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified every time we're putting out fresh content. This is real basic, but here we go. Okay, so basically, this is a caulk gun I got from Home Depot. It's a decent gun. There's a few features on it. There's a spout cutter right here. What the spout cutter is, it takes a finished tube of caulk and it cuts it for you, so you don't have to bust out a blade and do that as well. So usually when I'm using caulk, less is more. Unless I need to lay a really fat bead, I'm gonna cut less off the tip so that I'm not making a big mess, okay? So what you do, you take your tube of caulk, you put it in here, and you can see this little silver metal part, a hole right in the top of your tube. And another cool feature on this caulk gun is it has a clean out bar that's attached to the back side of the handle. And what that does, that allows you to push it into the hole and break the seal. Right now, this tube of caulk is still not active. You can't get any caulk out of it until you pierce the seal. There's a seal on the inside of the tube. If you don't pierce that seal properly, you're not gonna get any caulk out of the caulk gun. So here we go. All right, you don't have to be that aggressive. Basically, you just need to hit it a couple times to open it up. Now you can see there's caulk on my piercing clean out. So usually what I like to do is grab a towel and clean that off. Because what happens is they make a mess. See, they get all over your handle. They make a mess on your handle. And then what you do, and then when you stick it back in, see that right there? It kind of glues itself. If that's full of caulk, that'll glue itself right there. Then it's a pain in the butt to get this back out. Now I'm using a product called Henry 900, right there. This is a flashing and construction sealant. So not only is it used to seal really well, it's like snot, it also is a construction adhesive in the same product. And that's why we like it. So it'll really work well for gluing things together or for sealing things up. And we've never had an issue with this product. It works very well for us in the Pacific Northwest where it rains 367 days out of the year. All right, so I've pierced the top of my caulk. I've put holes in the seal that keeps it from coming out. Now what happens is on a caulk gun, there's this plunger. And as you pull the handle, the plunger moves. And that's what pushes the caulk out of the tube. Right here, there's a release, a tension release. So when the gun's under tension, it wants to push caulk out. You push on this so that it stops the tension and releases the caulk. It keeps the caulk from pushing out. Usually you have to push on this, and I usually pull back a little bit on the bar, and that's the most successful way I've found to keep the caulk from continually coming out of the tube. All right, but right now this is too far forward. I'll never get this brand new tube of caulk in this gun. I gotta push on the release, and then I can pull this bar back all the way to load my new tube of caulk. All right, so another thing on your tube, make sure you don't go like this, okay? And then it won't go in, and you're like, why won't my tube of caulk go in? Well, you didn't put it all the way back. You gotta make sure this thing seats in the back and then it'll drop in the front. Then when you push on your plunger, it locks it up front and tight. So now I'm ready to start squeezing the caulk, and eventually it'll start coming out the top. I'm not gonna go really hard on this. There it goes. Now notice when I hit the plunger, it stops the flow of the caulk. So watch it go, it's going, it's going. I'm gonna stop it, and this is gonna turn into snot and bleed all over the deck, so I don't wanna do that. But once you have your caulk tube loaded, and you got a little bit of tension and you're ready to go, then you just come down to your work surface, And this stuff is really thick. It works really well. So I'm just going to keep squeezing on this. This is actually a waterproof deck we built, and this is our first layer of protection. We have 3 layers that we're putting in, but this is the first one. This is how we're going to seal up against the house and make sure that we squeeze a lot of caulk into these lines. And it doesn't really matter how clean or messy we are. Now I'm having a lot of pressure. I'm having a hard time getting this caulk out of this tube because it's so thick. And it's still relatively cool out. I'm going to cut a little bit bigger hole in the top of this. And again, it's going to start making a mess. So I'm going to take a towel. I'm going to clean my tube before I make this cut. Okay, so now I got a little bit bigger hole to push the caulk out of. It'll make it a little bit easier on my wrists. Okay, so here we go. There we go. That's a little bit better bead for what I'm trying to do right here. So you just kind of have to go with the flow and what you're feeling. Right now I'm just trying to fill these cracks, these crevices, and using a high quality tube of caulk is going to do that for you. This stuff retails for about $10 a tube, so it's pretty expensive on the chart as far as caulk goes. Okay, so I've released the tension, I pull back on the plunger, and then I always put sometimes caulk can continue to flow out of a tube, even when you release all the tension and this is loose. So I always put my tube somewhere over a piece of tape or over something protective, right? That way, if it does bleed, it's going to bleed on something that's protected and you're not bleeding over your brand new deck. Okay, so now I have dispersed this caulk into the spot I want, but now I need to tool it. So I'm just going to use my finger, but I also have a disposable glove. And we use a lot of these. We go through a lot of these. I buy these at Costco by the case or whatever. They come in super handy. So I'm going to take this bead of caulk. I'm going to run my finger along here to work it into the crack like so. And that gives it a much nicer look. And you can run it back and forth a couple times if you want. And then you might get a low spot. I see kind of a low spot right here. So I usually go back and I'll hit that area again. That might have been a board that had a little bit more gap in it, something like that. It's not gonna hurt to throw a little extra in there, like so. Like that. So you'll see that we've put tape down. We're trying to keep the site clean. We don't want to make a mess out of the deck boards. We just want to have a nice clean bead of caulk when we're done. So by taping off things, it makes a real clean line. So when I pull this tape and I pull it back, we don't have a big messy area of caulk. We just have a nice clean bead. So preparation is always key. I always say that in a lot of my videos. Sometimes the prep work takes just as long as the finish work, but it makes things go a lot faster while you're working. All right, so I've got caulk all over my finger. Going to just turn the glove inside out. No harm, no foul. Oops, I dropped it. No big deal. It's all the caulk's on the inside. All right. Also, let's say I'm finished for the day. I still have a full tube of caulk. You always want to seal the end of your tubes. Now, this is a construction sealant. It never really fully dries. It's kind of rubberized. So I usually just run a screw in the end of my caulk, and I try to run it fairly deep so I can pull it out. Now, there's a lot of other aftermarket stuff to seal these up. I've actually taken rubber gloves and done that as well. You could use a rubber glove and put some tape, electrical tape around this. You could just use electrical tape. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Some tubes of caulk have a removable cap, which is kind of handy. I've used those in the past. But something to cover the tip will be very helpful so that you can reuse whatever's left in here, especially when you're spending $10 a tube. You don't want to throw away $3 to $4 worth of caulk every time you need to caulk something with the same product. That's all I got for you, man. That's how we do it. Get yourself a high quality caulk gun. Use these techniques. You can also use a wet rag to wipe down clear. So I'm not gonna get into clear versus heavy duty siding adhesives and things like that today. But just wanted to go over the basics of how to use a caulk gun. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. If you didn't, sorry about that. This is really a video for basics. If you like what you saw, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon if you want to be notified every time we're putting out fresh content. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.